Here are a couple extra examples that weren't in our original notes, so please add these on to just the Notability file that you have. And we're going to go through my extra examples about consecutive natural numbers and consecutive integers. So consecutive means right next to each other. So for example, if I don't know what my numbers are, but I know they're consecutive, I can say that I'm going to use the variable n, and that's going to be my first number. So then my second number would be just one more than n, so n plus 1. And then my third number, if I have three numbers, would be n plus 2. And my fourth number, if I had four numbers, would be n plus 3, and so on. So when you're asked for two consecutive numbers, whether they're natural or integers, this is the notation that you can use. You can use n for the first number, and then the next number would be that n value plus 1. And then the next value would be n plus 2, and so on. So there's some notation that you can use to help when you write your equations. And then in terms of if they're asking for a natural number or an integer, the only difference is natural numbers are your counting numbers. So when you count something 1, 2, 3, and so on. So natural numbers do not include the number 0, and they do not include negative numbers. They only include positive whole numbers. Integers, on the other hand, they can include those negatives. So integers could be a -3, -2, -1, or 0, or all the positive whole numbers. So integers are also whole numbers, and they include the negatives and the 0. So really the only difference between the two is positive or negative, and can 0 be an answer? So looking at number 1, find two consecutive natural numbers. So I know that my answers should be positive whole numbers whose sum is 99. So sum we know means we're going to add up and equal 99. Two consecutive natural numbers. So if we go and we look at this notation that we talked about here, we're going to use two of them. So we're going to use the n and the n plus 1. And we know that they add up. So we're going to use n and n plus 1. And we know that if we add those two together, we should get 99. So my equation would look like n plus 1 equals 99. So then simplifying that, we know that's just n plus 1, and then we can solve for n. So 2n plus 1 equals 99, subtract the 1 over, and divide by 2. So it looks like our n value is 49. So we want two of them. So we just found that our n value is 49. So now we need to find what our n plus 1 value would be. So if n is 49, n plus 1 would be 50. So our two numbers, our two consecutive numbers, are 49 and 50. And then let's just do a quick check. Just make sure that they add up to 99. And if you add 49 and 50, you do get 99. So these are easy problems to check as well. And the next one here gives us the product of two consecutive integers. So this time I can still use that same notation. So I can still use n and n plus 1. But I just know that because it says integers, my answers could be positive or negative. Okay? So the product of two consecutive integers is our equal sign. 12 less than the square of the smaller number. Find the two numbers. All right, so first of all, let's start here. Product means multiply. So when I multiply these two numbers, so n times n plus 1, it is, now I'm looking over here, is, so equals 12 less than, now be careful with that because that means you're subtracting 12. So we're subtracting 12 from something, and we're subtracting it from the square of the smaller number. Well, the smaller number here is n, so the square of n is n squared. So that's how we can set up to solve and then find the two numbers. So if we distribute here, we get n squared plus 1n equals n squared minus 12. Get these n squareds on the both sides by subtracting it, and when you do that, they cancel out, which is nice. So we get 1n equals -12, so n is just -12. And that is an okay number because we know they're integers, so they could be positive or negative. So remember though, we need two numbers, so we just found n, so now n plus 1 would be negative 12 plus 1, so that would be negative 11. So our two numbers, our two integers are negative 12 and negative 11. And of course, you can go back, substitute those numbers back into your original, and make sure that you get equivalent values.